need one of these. Video update. He's just completed that bit. I'm smelling the gnarly smell of 45-year-old plastic because, well, brother has gotten another toy. Another toy! But yes, I had to take this back to our poor welder one more time because it wasn't quite fitting. It kind of canters over. This isn't exactly a straight angle, as you can see. And, whoops, in order to make that piece fit, I should explain, our welder was working completely blind based off of our measurements, and then I'm assuming as soon as he got it onto his welding bench, I mean, it just, he just lost those measurements. We would give him a piece and be like, this piece and this piece duct taped together, not the best way to measure things. So what we had to do was shear this off completely. This was a fin. I have to assume it was in part structural to the back, as it was a stock, and also like limit the flow of oil, keep it from sloshing around. I'm kind of stuck with what it is. The pickup fits, it rests like this, the way it is. Kind of tilted up, not quite this much, but tilted up a little bit. Which is a little bit more forward than its stock position, but it's after 4 times of going back to this poor welder and saying, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? I'm over it. The car blows up. You'll know why. This baffle, we debated whether we should keep it or not. We certainly do, because this prevents the oil, when you're going around a corner, from sloshing back and forth too much, so that your pickup remains immersed in oil a little better. They actually make kits that completely cover these entire sides. For racing purposes, I decided not to do that because I just don't feel the need. Oh, that's right. He's cutting 45-year-old plastic and killing me. He's killing me. But yes. So part of the problem was that the oil pump is here now. It would have been kind of back here otherwise. It's here now. And the pickup is like a little chute that comes down here. So what we had to do was, again, working mostly blind, because you put this thing on and then determine, hey, this isn't working or that isn't working because it won't go on. There's no real way, apart from craning your neck a little bit to get to see what's going on. There's no way to really see what's going on in there once it's on. God, he's gonna set his shoe on fire. So we determined very scientifically that this needed to go away. And yes, now it fits. I did a test fitting. Yes, I did a stripper bolt. Why do you ask? I did a test fitting, and it went on just fine. Second piece on the agenda. That's ripe. Ripe, I tell you. Second piece on the agenda, obviously, is this baffle, which, as I discussed in an earlier clip, prevents the oil from turning too much into frappe, or rather latte, not frappe, turning too much into a frappe and getting into the oil sump with too many bubbles. So this kind of slows down the flow of oil back into the sump, so it gives more chance to remove those air bubbles. Problem number one was this was just a little too long, so Clay just chopped that, and now that's more restricted than stock, but with, you know, all the other modifications, it's just by my eyeball, it should be all right. I've yet to test this. Already I can tell it's kind of going to be a tight fit, so I'm going to, like, the cool thing about this is that you can take it and put it against the bottom of the block and determine whether or not this is going to work. You know, I don't mind too much if a little oil drops in through here. If I have to cut, I need a finger, have to cut a little bit over, which is what I'm already seeing I think I may need to do. But I need to do that test, so we're going to do that right now. Okay, we just put that baffle on, and we didn't make a video, but suffice it to say,
the holes are clear on this side, so we're good.
Okay, yeah. Suffice it to say, this was good on the first attempt. Well done, Clay, and well done me for measuring that.
Yeah, it's not touching it at all.
Should provide enough protection for the oil in the pan from frothing too much. We're giving this a couple minutes for this to cure, and then I'm gonna have to yank out these bolts. This is literally just so that it went in properly, because you want to silicone this side of the baffle and this side of these pieces as well. You have these two little gasketettes that go on either side of the engine, and then you bring the oil pan on board, and then you silicone that side, squish it on there, and then we should be good to go. Okay, he texts. We got these pieces on. Can't really see that one very well, but suffice to say, that is rubber hugging that metal. These are kind of holding themselves up, which is kind of encouraging. Waiting for a minute or two more while I go grab the oil pan from behind the transmission there and slide this on. I'm gonna have to take these bolts out because you know, they will be in the way. Yeah, so we finally got it on. It was not easy. We stripped a couple bolts on the other side, and this side I still have a gap. Hopefully I can seal that up carefully without breaking anything. Are you good? I think he is. Yeah, fun and eventful. How delightful. Yes. We stripped a couple of these bolts that go onto the oil pan. We need them. I need them. I mean, you know, do we really need them? Probably not, but I'm just a completionist, so I feel like we need them. Apart from that, everything is on. I cannot believe it.
It's kind of weird seeing how silver that pan is against the darkness.
I know, yeah, it's beautiful, and I told him, it's like, you made something beautiful, and it's going to be at the bottom of the engine.
I've been driving it for over a year.
Thank you, gentlemen. That is a job well done. Apart from the 2 bolts that we stripped, that I need to order some new ones. Couldn't possibly be that expensive. Once again, I'm dismayed that the prettiest part of the engine is in the bottom, but whatever. My cheap ass cannot be asked to take the heads off and go have them cleaned like some rich asshole, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm just falling all over the place. Yes, everything went in more or less all right. I don't remember, and maybe I didn't have the time to look at my archive, but there is actually a gap here. I'm assuming that is perfectly stock. It's not pretty. The gasket maker is gooping around all around the edge of it. But you know what that tells me? That tells me that it's not going to leak. Probably. The sub-project that still needs to be done is the oil dipstick. It is not going to fit in its stock configuration, even with that, just by virtue of having that alternator in the way. So we need to bend this tube. The dipstick itself is actually straight. Like you pull it out and it's completely straight, but the tube is curvy a little bit. So I'm certain that there will be there's a little more wiggle room available. And then, just be like, whoop, just kind of there. And I just have to know that it's there, which I will. But yeah, unfortunately, it just got too late. It's almost midnight, and we didn't have the energy between the three of us hefting this thing onto these ramps, not jack stands. My car's so filthy. You can see the filth. But yes, we will eventually, probably tomorrow, lower this into the car and then start making measurements for the motor mounts. That is the next part of this Herculean project. I need one of these. I think that's the original alternator anyway, so it's just, so far it seems to be working, and I don't want to blow another $100 that I don't necessarily have to, but this is just another hunk of thought. This starter, of course, is also original. Seems to be operating just fine. So I'm not going to fix it because it ain't broke. On hindsight, I decided to put a bunch of gasket maker here. I don't think you need a bunch of gasket maker there. Just, probably a stupid decision, but we were all like, oh no, we need that. Whatever. Yeah. I think just on a stock Miata, this is almost impossible to do an oil change. Because the motor mount goes here, it's like, where are you supposed to grab this filter? Where are you supposed to get it? Like there, there's no way from above, and from below, there's not many prospects either. I mean, yes, I changed the oil filter while the filter was out, the engine was out of the car. Easiest way, but I hope I don't have to do that every time. So, it's in. It's finally in. Well, if I can maneuver myself into position. Okay. So, we had kind of a bit of a problem. You see this cross member, and behind it is the steering rack. Was really a pain in the ass to try and get our custom oil pan around. So what we did is there were two nubs for the bottom two bolts in the bell housing. And we needed an inch of clearance. There was just no way we could do this without that. So we shaved those off. And you actually don't need those little bulbs, as it were. It's really the only way I could describe them. Because that was to prevent oil from getting into those bolts on the bell housing and potentially leaking into the transmission. Oil, it's not fluid, it's oil, or just leaking out. And the thing is, there's no oil pan there anymore, so there you go, you don't need it anymore. So shaved that off, obviously took the bolts out first, and then shaved that off, put it back. And now the engine sits pretty much how it's going to sit when we're done. We may move it an inch back so that pulley clears this anti-sway bar. And we do have about an inch clearance there. That all depends on kind of the just how level this is. I don't think it's perfectly level with the car quite yet, but it's kind of one of the things that I just don't want to do now is fabricate a new drive shaft or a custom drive shaft. The stock drive shaft will bolt into this, so my plan and hope is that we can just have that taken care of on that end, and then up here just kind of deal with what we have. But I mean, it's exciting just to see it finally in the engine bay, more or less as intended. There's a little bit of room. There's maybe, probably about as much room as there was before. This intake manifold is taking up quite a bit of room. Um, what remains is a lot of engineering work, electrical work, just the works. Putting the radiator in, putting a radiator fan. Before we even do any of that, we need this thing mechanically, or just by virtue of hardware, solid and put into the car, as in all mounts are attached and it's not going anywhere, before we can really start to install the radiator and just everything else that is required to make this thing work, including electrical. But so this was earlier this afternoon. Tonight's project is finally getting this dipstick to play nice with where the dipstick is, which is under that alternator. And my plan is to kind of bend it around this alternator. And what we've been using as a buck is this here Louisville Slugger. There's my mallet. Thing once again proves itself very useful in unconventional ways. And so that'll about do it. The only downside of that, of course, is it's just a little bit difficult to put the dipstick back in and take it out. Not quite as difficult to take it out, but a bit difficult to put it back in. I had projected it coming out about here, which is really the best I can do. I'm not putting it in yet because I want to wire this thing up before I do that, because there's a lot of electrical wiring down in that area, and I want to make sure that that's all plugged in before I have put, with the intention of it being permanent, this dipstick. Clay had an idea, which is probably the better idea, which was kind of leading it out kind of this way. He actually wanted it up here under the belt, and I'm like, yeah, no way. No. But kind of there where the alternator is, that kind of gap. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff to put on here, just a ton of things. So I'm not going to really do that just yet. This thing does need a dipstick, though. I mean, it's the worst part of the block to put a dipstick. But yeah, I'm just, I'm taking it all in, and, the project continues to share time with everything else in my life, but I'm just taking it all in, how it's all in there, and just trying to figure out, we're only just begun again, but it's just a clear way forward. It's marvelous.